72% of pastors reporting 55 to 75 hour work weeks. That's
How many hours?
55 to 75 hours a week, and that's low for some, isn't it?
That's a light week.
Yeah. Now, I am not opposed to a senior leader running 55 to 60 hours a week. 75 hours is grueling, and that takes a toll on family, emotions, health, everything. I know what happens with me running those type of hours, and that's not smart, but sometimes you cannot avoid it. But if you are a pastor and you are not well compensated, that also becomes a real issue. You're running yourself literally to death and nothing to show for it monetarily. That's a challenge. And we can talk about all we want. Well, we're doing it for the kingdom, we're doing it for the Lord, and that's good and right and honorable. But the fact still stands on the first stat that is causing, what is that, 3,000 pastors a year? 250 a month? Multiplies out to 3,000, correct? 3,000 pastors a year leaving the ministry? That is staggering. That's staggering.
That's right. 'Cause a couple of years back, it was 49 a week. I remember that about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's went up then.
So now it's
based on
increasing. You've got about a, 3% increase or so, somewhere in there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's huge. So that's an alarming stat. And then 50% of churches, and we know this is age old, but the things that this represents is what is concerning to me. You got 50% of our churches that have 100 members or less. Small to medium churches make up another 40% of churches and have 100 to 350 members, and that's going to be more between that 100, 200 than the 200, 350, because 200 is a major barrier to break through with any organization like that. So now you're dealing with a whole new economic dynamic, because you, at 100 people or less, those pastors are going to be working a lot of hours and struggling financially with everything they're doing, especially with climbing real estate prices, utilities, et cetera, insurances, overhead costs. All those economic equations bring you to zero money left, and in a small church setting, the last one to get paid is who? It's that pastor. So now you're working yourself very, very long hours. You're sacrificing family time, etc., and many times not able to make your own obligations financially, because you're pouring everything in, and we keep saying, well, it's the kingdom, it's the kingdom, it's the kingdom. And it is, but on the other end of the spectrum, there are people in the kingdom living very well, and people all around us in our society living very well. There's a lot of poverty. There's more than enough of that to go around. But pastors ought not to be in poverty.
No.
If I can just be a little preachy for a moment.
Yeah. No.
All right. So we've got issues there that we've got to deal with, and looking at the stats and realizing what the real numbers are. Now, if you're running 100 to 150 congregation, that means that you've probably at that stage stepped out to build a new building, have a permanent facility. You've increased your mortgage obligations, your utilities, your insurances, etc. You've increased in numbers and responsibilities on the ministerial chart. So now you are more obligated, more stretched on your workload, and when the day is done, there are less dollars left in the till than there was to start with. And you're stressed out about building the building or buying the building, et cetera, and now those increased payments and that extra obligation just to house the people that are coming, and it's like there's no end in sight, because now you're hitting 130 to 150 people, and there's still not enough money to go around. Well, that's a challenge.
So what do you do? What are you, because the challenges ain't going nowhere.
No, they're not.
And even though we may fix, if we could go and fix theoretically those 3,000 pastor situation, it would more than likely would probably create another 3,000 somewhere else.
That's right.
That would replace what we just fixed. And so the challenge becomes, because we've been a small ministry for years, and one of the things that I decided to do, or the Lord directed me to do, was to start talking about this, having the difference between a calling and a career, and being able to balance that. And so, in regards to the statistics that you're sharing, and let me explain the difference. So a calling, a career, is something you do to produce income into your life, to provide for your family. I mean, I think everybody would agree with that.
Yes.
So a career produces income, but a calling is what you do to produce the outcome in the lives of other people.
That's good. That's very good.
And so for me, being bivocational, I say I'm bivocational, and so it was important for me, because I don't think every pastor has the grace to put his calling and career under the same umbrella, and that's okay. There are many, we know of many that were able to do that and do it well, but I think whether that calling and career is under the umbrella of you as a pastor, or if you're a pastor calling and then you have a career that you do something else, I still think it's important that you have a game plan for both. Even if I'm a pastor in a church and that's my calling and that is my career, I still need to have a game plan for both. For me, raising 3 boys, pastoring a church, a lot of people say, well, why didn't you have the challenges with the pastoral, the PK kids, why you didn't have that challenge? And we're fortunate with the 3 boys, we didn't have that issue or that challenge, or I should say, or we're able to conquer that challenge, maybe to put it that way. But the thing that I was very sensitive to in my calling was, I went to the Lord and said, I don't want to help everybody else and then my own family be a castaway. And so with that, it led me down a path where I started to work on a career and a calling. Now, I have tried to be full-time, if you want to call it full-time. I feel like I'm a full-time pastor, whether I get paid or not. So I took the approach that I am in full-time ministry. I just had my calling and my career just kind of comes through 2 different veins. And so I developed a plan to make sure that my career could take care of my family, because I think that's ministry. I think, and sometimes we try to frame, I don't believe that God will ask you to do something over here that will contradict what he told you to do over here.
That's good.
And so if he as a man, if he tells me to provide for your family and nurture your children and do all those things, then he's not going to call me over here and that contradict what he told me to do over here, if that makes sense. And I think what happens with us people when we're trying to balance that, sometimes we contradict ourselves and say, well, he calling me here, and then we neglect over here. But God is not confused. He's not going to call me to do this, and then it disrupts what he called me to do over here. I think they work together, but I think we have to be creative enough to step outside the box and not try to make my ministry look like Wayne's ministry or Graham's ministry or Brooks' ministry, but let me look at myself and say, okay, God, here's the gifts and talents and the skills that I have, and I want to take these gifts and these talents and these skills, and I want to offer these back I want to serve them, back to be prosperous for the kingdom. But in doing that, I've just come to a place that and one day that may happen where everything is under one umbrella. But for me right now, I serve as a director of facilities for a college, and I feel like when I'm there, I feel like I'm still doing ministry, because I still produce an outcome in the lives of people, whether it's through facility stuff or whether it's through me mentoring or whether it's through me witnessing or praying or supporting or encouraging throughout the course of my day. But at the end of the day, when I come home, I want to make sure my family is provided for and they have what they need. And that was the approach I took. And that's what I teach a lot of young pastors, that when they get called in ministry, I know, wait a minute, now when you get this calling, how you frame things, I learned is that if you take a picture, the frame can either enhance the picture or make it worse. And how you frame the picture, the vision that God shows you, is either going to make it look better or make it look worse. When I say frame, I'm talking about how we frame things in our head, because he gives us a vision. Then, I think just like a picture frame, either I got a choice. I got to either, if you ever taken a picture of something and you get it printed, we don't print pictures no more. You don't print pictures. And so, but you ever taken a picture of something, then you go buy the frame, and when you get the frame, the picture don't quite fit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first thing you do? Cut the picture.
Yeah.
You trim the vision, right? Which is a bad move. Maybe I need to build a frame.
Build a bigger frame, get a frame.
So that it will support the vision that God has given me. What are you saying? And
that's a good word.
So what I'm saying is, sometimes it's the frame of mind that needs to be trimmed or shaped so that it can fit the vision that God has given me. And I think, but that's the difficult part, because it's easy just to cut the picture. It's easy to cut the vision that God gave me. And I think what's happening is one of the challenges I believe that a lot of pastors are in or falling from or stepping away from the ministry is that they did not, there's nothing wrong with the vision God gave them. It may be the plan that they develop to carry out that vision. And so I try to encourage people that if something doesn't go right, it's not the vision that's messed up. It's probably the plan that needs adjustment. And so if the plan, and one of the things I think people do is they confuse their plan with God's vision. You know what I'm saying? And so he gave me this vision, and then, I've learned that God can give you an idea, but he don't study for you. He's not going to study. He's not going to study. He give you the idea, but somewhere along the line that this idea that he gave me to a sermon, he gives you this idea, but he ain't going to go study for you. And so, yeah. And so I got to go study. But sometimes even when I study, if it doesn't come out the way it was supposed to, it was nothing wrong with his idea, the vision. It just I may need to make adjustments to my plan. And I think, I don't know if we're good enough making the adjustments to plans.
Wow.
Yeah.